Hey everyone, today I'm going to show you how to install the Tusk plug-and-play signal and horn kit on your Kawasaki KRX 1000. Now if you're trying to get your machine street legal and you need to add turn signals, a horn, or even a license plate light, this is a great way to get that done. Now, like the name suggests, this is plug and play, so it's going to be a straightforward process. You don't have to be an electrical guru to get it installed. You just lay the harness out and start making your connections. Now with that being said, you've got a couple options for the turn signals in the front. You've got the signature lights with integrated turn signals. That's the premium option, but if you're trying to save some money, you can always go with the bubble lights. Just make that selection when you go to order this on our website. Now in the back, you're just going to be tying into existing wiring, and we're going to be using the existing tail lights for the turn signals as well. Now this process will work for your 2 and your 4-seaters. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and get started. To start out, we've laid out everything in our signal and horn kit in order. So we have all of the wiring, our switches, relays, and we've got our turn signals right here. So again, these are the 2 different options. You're either going to get the accent lights or the signature lights with the integrated turn signals, or the other kit is only going to come with these bubble lights. So get the one you want. Other than that, we've got the license plate holder and license plate light along with that horn. Comes with all of your mounting hardware and zip ties to get all of this wiring tied down. Now with all that being said, I know this looks like a lot of parts, but we're going to simplify the process as best as possible and just take things one thing at a time. Before we install the harness, I've laid out everything on the ground in order to give you guys a rough idea of where everything needs to go. Now at the front of the main harness, you're going to have 3 leads that go through the front of your dash. So that's going to be your horn wires. Those are going to be the black and white wires. And then you have the 2 turn signal leads going up there as well. So your left turn signal, that's going to have the connector with the yellow wire, and the right turn signal is going to have the wire that is green. If you're running the accent lights, you're going to have a harness adapter that needs to be plugged in. That's only going to clip in one way. But if you have the bubble lights, you also have a harness adapter, and your bubble lights can come in 2 different options. So you might have bubble lights that have the white and black leads. If that's the case, it's real simple. White wire to white wire, black wire to black wire. But if you have the bubble lights that come with the red and black leads, it's going to be opposite. So your red wire is going to go to the black wire and the black wire to the white one. Now moving down the harness and into the cab, we've got a 3-pin connector that is not going to be used. That's for a different machine. But next to it, we've got a 12-pin connector that will be used. And you want to look at this connector. All these pins on there, you want to make sure they're perfectly straight. Occasionally you'll find one that is bent, and if that's the case, you want to straighten it out with a flat blade screwdriver. And it's a good idea to go through that check on all of your connectors on the harness. Now from there, the 12-pin connector hooks into the rocker switch harness. We've got 2 relays going into that, as well as 2 rocker switches. The horn is going to be the lead with the 2 wires, and the turn signal switch is going to be the lead with 7 wires. And as you make these connections, pay attention to the backside of the switch. There's a locating pin, and it needs to go in the correct spot. Now still underneath the dash next to the 12-pin connector, we've got this power pigtail that we're going to be connecting to our terminal block, and we also have a 3-pin flasher relay right next to it. Now moving further back, we're going to connect the tail harness to the main, and on the tail harness, the connector with the brown wire is for the right turn signal, and the connector with the purple wire is going to be for the left turn signal. Keep in mind the blue and black license plate light wires are going to be routed right next to the left turn signal wires. And when you connect these, you're going to connect the red wire from the light to the blue wire on the harness, and then black to black. The first step is to route your wiring harness. Now we're going to run this through the tunnel, and then it's just going to branch out to different parts of the machine. So we need to gain access to all those areas. All you need to do is remove your seats and center console, but we're going to remove some additional items to better show the process. Now to remove your center console, you're going to have a couple screws, but mostly it's just going to be the plastic trim clips. We've got some special pliers to help us, but you can just use a flat blade screwdriver. Now that we have two of the rear center console pieces out of the way, for the front, we're just going to work on that driver's side. We've got a bunch of fasteners in that panel. We're going to remove enough of those fasteners so we can swing it out and route our wiring. Next, we're going to disconnect the negative battery terminal. And this is just going to help us prevent from making any sparks or blowing any fuses. Now that we have access to the tunnel and everywhere we're going to be routing our wires, we're going to start with the main harness. And again, that's the one with the 12-pin connector. This is going to stay pretty close to your dash right here. Now from there, we're going to route everything else. So in my right hand, I've got the two front turn signal wires and the horn wires. So these are 3-pin connectors, and we've got green, black, and blue, and then the yellow, that's your left front turn signal. So you've got yellow, black, and blue on that one. So we're going to go ahead and pass these up through the dash. There's a little cutout towards the front. Now as you route your wires, be sure to keep the wires clear of any hot, sharp, or rotating components, and don't put any extra strain on the connectors. So back inside the dash, we've got the 12-pin connector. This is going to end up pretty close to this bar right here. We're just behind our ignition switch. So I'll set that down for now. And then we have this 3-pin connector as well as a smaller 3-pin connector. This one's for the power pigtail, and this one is for the flasher relay. These are going to be in this general area as well. So I'm going to go ahead and set these just across that bar for now. Now the main thing we need to route right here is this connector that plugs in to that tail harness. So with this, we're just going to follow the existing wiring harness all the way through the tunnel, between the seat belts, and then there's a grommet on the firewall. We're going to set this right next to that grommet. The next step is to wire up the power pigtail. So we've got a red wire on here. That's going to go to constant power. The blue is for accessory, and the black is ground. Now on the power bar on the KRX, we're right underneath the dash right here. All the way to the right, this is our ground terminal. And all the way to the left, that's going to be the key on power. Now this middle terminal, that's going to be for constant power, and your machine might not come with a wire ran up to that from the factory. So if you want to run a wire up and have that constant power, that's fine. We're actually not going to do that on our machine. So the red wire would normally go there. This is for the horn, but we're actually just going to be connecting this and the blue wire to that key on power terminal right there. And then again, black wire to the ground. And to remove these nuts, we're just using a 3/8 inch socket. And when you tighten the nuts down, make sure you don't over tighten them. You just want to snug everything down, but you don't want to strip these little posts out. Now again, if you run this red wire to that post, the horn is only going to work with the key on. The next step is to plug the power pigtail into the main harness. And when you make your connection, you want to make sure that it clips all the way on. So as you push that, you can hear it clip down into place. Now the next step is to attach the flasher relay. So with this, you got to find somewhere to mount it. You can use the screws that come in the kit. That's going to be your most permanent option. For us, I'm actually using the 3M double stick adhesive on this machine. And I found we've got this glove compartment, and on this outside of it right here, I'm going to stick it on right there. But I'm going to make sure it's clean. So I'm using just a little bit of rubbing alcohol on the back of the relay as well as on that plastic. So again, on the main harness right next to the power pigtail, we've got that smaller 3-pin connector for the flasher relay. I'm going to go ahead and make that connection, and then we're going to move towards the back of the machine. Now back at the left rear wheel well, we're going to take the tail harness, we're going to feed it through the firewall, and then we're going to connect that into the main harness. After that, we're going to route our wires to each corner. So this obviously says left, it's got the purple wire, this one's right. I'm going to start with these left side wires, and we're just following the existing wiring harness back to the tail lights. And don't forget, this is going to have the license plate lights on this side as well. So that's just going to follow the wiring harness. It's going to hang down for now. So I'm just going to disconnect that tail light. Plug the harness in, make sure it's fully clipped into place. And then that original tail light connector, we're just going to plug right into the harness. Now, since we're on the left side of the machine, we're going to be routing the license plate wires as well. So I've got this harness here. I'm going to follow that on the back side of the frame. I'm going to reach down, pull these wires through, and then this back panel, we've got that honeycomb in the back. I'm going to stick the wires through there. Now we're going to route these right side wires across the machine, and you want to avoid any hot spots. So we've got a heat shield and exhaust and cooling lines, all that kind of stuff we're trying to avoid. Now this motor mount, there's some wires routed across there, so that's a great place to tie to. So we're just going to run it across there and out the other side. And then from here we can just follow the frame all the way to that tail light. The next step is to install your license plate bracket. Now you can see we've already had this installed once. We have 2 holes drilled out already. But if you're not to that point, you can take a tape measure, get this thing centered up side to side, and then use your Sharpie, mark your drill points, and then just take a 1/4 inch drill bit and drill right through. Then once you have that done, you can take 2 of the supplied bolts. These are going to be the longer bolts that came with this bracket. And then on the back side, we've got the washers that came in the kit and the nylock nuts. And we're just using 10mm socket and 10mm combo wrench to snug those up. Now this bracket also comes with mounting hardware for when you get your license plate, but I always like to use this license plate light in the upper left-hand corner and have that be one of the mounts for the license plate. So with this, we're just going to run those wires through that slot. Then I've got a washer on the back side, as well as the nut. And even though we don't have our license plate yet, we're going to snug this up just to test it out. Now for the bullet connectors, we're going red to blue and then black to black. Then I'll feed all that extra wire back through that rear panel. And from here we can use the supplied zip ties to tie up the wiring for the tail harness. Now, quick little tip, we want to keep this wire away from any moving parts. So on this bend right here, what I'm going to do is take 1 zip tie, I'm going through these 2 holes. I'm going to make a loop. I'm going to leave that loose, and I can wrap a zip tie around the wire and through the zip tie that's on the frame. And I've just made a little mounting location for this. We can get that right where we want it. And you can see we have some wiring on this motor mounting bar. I'm just going to tie right to that. Now at the front of the machine, we're ready to start working on our turn signals. Now we're going to show you how to install the bubble lights first and then the accent lights after. So if you have these bubble lights, you want to find a mounting location. You can see we've had these installed before. We just drilled both of them right here on each side. But if you want to put these in a different spot, sounds good. Just make sure that they're in a visible location. And then to get these mounted up, what you're gonna do is take the 3/4 inch drill bit that comes in the kit. You're gonna drill both of those holes out. And we don't recommend just drilling them out. We recommend removing the hood panel and drilling them out on a bench. That way you don't damage anything behind. But you certainly could drill it right here. Just be aware there are some risks. So with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys how to remove this panel. Then with the panel off, it makes it real easy to mark the 2 mounting locations and then just drill through that back side. Now to install the bubble lights, you have this rubber grommet. You're gonna pop that off and has a little lip. You're just gonna push that into the hole you just drilled. And then the bubble light itself, it's really hard to see on camera, but there's gonna be letters at the top. It's gonna say top. Just make sure that's facing up. Stick both wires through, pull it right into place. And sometimes it helps to get this squared up in there and all the way down. Sometimes you can push that rubber forward just a little bit, and it'll help the light pop in. And you can do that for the bottom one as well. And with those in place, we're ready to route the wiring over to these. Now it's going to be a similar routing whether you're installing these or the accent lights. Green is going to be for the right turn signal. It has the R in it, green. Yellow has the L in it, so left side, right side. Anyway, we're going to route this along existing wiring and just along the frame over to this area. Then we've got our wires hanging down right here from the bubble lights, but we do have the harness adapter. Clip this in. And then since we have the bubble lights with the white and black leads, it's just going to be white and white, black and black. Now again, if you have the black and red leads, it's going to be red to black and black to white on this adapter. Now that we've made our connections, we can go ahead and start routing the wires. We're just going to pull any excess back towards the center of the machine. Now for the accent lights, we're going to route these plug wires down to each corner of the machine. Again, yellow is the left side or driver's side, and green is going to go to the right side or passenger side. Now with this, we're just following the existing wiring and the frame tubes, and we're going to route these down right by the bottom of the radiator. And then with that grill removed, you can see little cutouts in the corner. We're just going to poke the wires right through there. Next, you want to take your accent light adapters, plug those in. These are going to be the same for both sides. And then we're going over to the bench with our grill. Now with the grill on the bench, we're going to install these accent lights. These only fit on one way. You're going to have this little L shape at the bottom. And as you do this, you'll notice the wiring will fit through one of the slots in that grill. So just do that on both sides and then we'll flip it over. And then what you're going to do is take these L brackets and one of the screws. Each side is going to have 4 mounting locations for these. So I'm just going to hold this up. Put an L bracket in place, and then I've got my number 2 Phillips screwdriver. I'm just going to snug that down. Make sure you don't over tighten it. You don't want to strip it out because we're going into plastic. And we're just going to do that in all 8 mounting locations. And just pay attention as you snug up these L brackets, make sure that the bracket stays tight against the plastic. We've already got one side done, so we'll finish up on the other side. Now back over at the machine, all you have to do is plug the connectors in. Then I'm going to push the extra wire back through. We're going to line up the 2 tabs at the bottom of the grill and then clip it into place. From here we have two remaining wires. So the black and white wires, those are going to be for the horn. Now you can mount this wherever you want, and it does come with a bolt and a nut. But I found that if you either cut this bolt a little shorter or source an M6 by 1.25 millimeter bolt that's a little bit shorter, we're going to be able to mount this to an existing nut that is welded in the frame. So that's going to be right here underneath the dash. And you can see our horn has a little bend in it. That's going to help it to fit a little bit better. So you can bend this sheet metal just to make it fit better. Now to connect the horn, I've got my wires routed underneath these two right here. And the horn is not polarity sensitive, so you can plug either connector on either side. And then what I'm going to do is set this in place, slide that tab underneath the wires and into the mounting location. We've got our bolt. Now that we have all the wires routed, I'm going to push the excess wire back into the cab, and then I'm going to tie everything down with a few zip ties. Back inside the cab, we need to install some switches. So you need to determine where you want to mount these up. The center console is going to be a great location. You can use the knockout plugs, but we're maxed out already. We don't have any room there. So the left side of the steering wheel, there's some templates in that dash that you can actually cut out. You're going to want to use a razor blade to do that. You can see we've already done that with our razor blade, but as you go through, just make sure you get any sharp edges cleaned up. The next step is to connect the rocker switch harness to the main harness, and that's going to be the 12-pin connector. Then we have two connectors for our relays. Now the relays are only going to connect on here one way, and it doesn't matter which relay goes where. And then we have two remaining connectors on that rocker switch harness. So we're just going to route these over to where we're going to mount up the rocker switches. And again, as you route this stuff, make sure you avoid any rotating parts. We've got that steering column right there, so we're going to stay away from that, and we're going across a bar all the way to that other side. Then the connector with the two wires, that's going to be for the horn. And again, you have that locating pin. Make sure you get that lined up. And we're going to pop that into place. And then same thing on the turn signal switch, but that's just going to have 7 pins. Now that we have everything installed, we can go ahead and reconnect the battery and test to make sure that all of the lights work and that our horn works. If you find anything that is not working, make sure you go back through and check your wiring. And once you've verified that everything works, you want to go back through and tie down all of your wiring through that center console and underneath your dash. And if you have any extra length of wire, which you probably will, you can loop that up and then tie it down. Now that everything is tied down, we can reinstall the dash panels as well as the center console. And when you go to reconnect any switches in these panels, you want to make sure you get them in the right spots. So you can see the factory switches, they're actually labeled. Once you have all your fasteners in your console, you can go ahead and reinstall your seats. That's how you install the Tusk plug-and-play UTV signal and horn kit on your Kawasaki KRX 1000. Again, if you're trying to get your machine street legal, this is a great way to help get you there. The process will be similar for the 2 and the 4-seaters. And if you need one of these kits, they're available on our website. Just click the link in the description below or head over to our website. We offer free shipping on orders over $75. So take advantage of that. And if you want to see more helpful content like this, subscribe to our channel. I'm Charles with Rocky Mountain ATV MC. Thanks for watching.